It was a warm afternoon in Los Angeles, the kind of day when most people hurried in and out of air-conditioned stores. But Keanu Reeves walked slowly, pushing a small cart through the wide aisles of a high-end grocery store, his head slightly down under a plain baseball cap, wearing a faded t-shirt and jeans, blending in like any other customer. There was no sign of bodyguards, no entourage, no expensive designer clothes that screamed celebrity. Instead, he looked like a regular man doing his weekend shopping, stopping at each section to read the small print on price tags. Sometimes picking up a product, turning it over, and putting it back if it didn't feel worth the price. A few customers noticed him but didn't approach, unsure if it was really him. Because most people expect famous actors to move through the world with flash and noise. But Keanu moved quietly, almost invisible, like he preferred no one to notice at all. He picked items carefully: bread, milk, a small pack of cheese, fresh vegetables, some canned soup. And then, as he reached into the pocket of his jeans, he pulled out a folded envelope. Inside was a neat stack of discount coupons, each one clipped out with straight edges, showing that he had taken the time to prepare them before coming to the store. He joined the line at the checkout, standing behind an elderly woman with a basket of groceries. When it was his turn, the cashier scanned his items with the same board speed they used for every customer. But as soon as he handed over the coupons, two store employees standing a few steps away exchanged glances. One of them smirked, whispering something to the other. They both laughed quietly, but not quietly enough. The sound carried just enough for Keanu to hear. It was the kind of laugh that wasn't friendly. It was the laugh of people who thought they were above. Youth cashier didn't say anything, just scanned the coupons, and the total dropped by a few dollars. Keanu smiled politely, nodded, and paid in cash. But in the corner of the store, a young man with his phone out was recording, pretending to check messages but clearly aiming the camera at Keanu, zooming in when the coupons were handed over. A few shoppers glanced in their direction, some recognizing him, some just curious about the scene. And the two employees leaned on the counter near the customer service desk, still shaking their heads in disbelief that one of the most famous actors in the world was using discount coupons in a store where most customers didn't think twice about overpriced items. For Keanu, it wasn't strange at all. Saving money wasn't about need, it was about habit, about valuing what you earned. He didn't look embarrassed or offended. He didn't even react to the whispers. Instead, he thanked the cashier, put his change neatly into his wallet, and started packing his own groceries into reusable cloth bags. His movements calm, slow, and unbothered, like someone who had lived enough life to understand that other people's opinions were just noise. But for the people in the store that day, especially the ones who noticed the little scene, something about it stuck in their minds. Here was a man who had starred in billion-dollar films, yet he was counting cents on bread and milk. The image clashed with what the world expected from Hollywood stars. Maybe that was why the young man filming couldn't resist uploading the video later that evening, adding a sarcastic caption, thinking it would be a harmless joke, something people could laugh at, not realizing that this quiet moment in the grocery store was about to travel far beyond those shiny aisles. As Keanu left the store, stepping into the bright sunlight with his two grocery bags, the laughter from inside faded behind him. He didn't look back, didn't speed up, just walked to his car, on older model, clean but far from flashy, loaded the bags into the trunk, and drove off with the same calm he had inside. There was no sign of irritation, no sign of anger, only the steady presence of someone who had nothing to prove. But the truth was, this simple, almost ordinary moment was about to begin a chain of events that no one in that store, especially the ones laughing, could have imagined. That night, the young man who had filmed Keanu at the grocery store sat in his small apartment, scrolling through his phone. He replayed the short clip several times, watching the moment where Keanu handed over the coupons and the store employees laughed in the background. It seemed harmless to him, maybe even funny. So without thinking much, he uploaded it to his social media account, adding a caption that read, "Hollywood millionaire counts coupons, guess the money's all gone," followed by a few laughing emojis. He thought it would get a few likes, maybe some comments, and then fade away, like most posts do. But within hours, the video started to spread, first among his friends, then their friends. And soon it was picked up by strangers. The views climbed fast, each refresh showing hundreds more. People in the comments section had mixed reactions. Some joined in with jokes, calling Keanu cheap or broke, saying things like, "Imagine having millions and still worrying about a few cents." Others defended him, pointing out that saving money was a smart habit, and that it was nothing to be ashamed of. The arguments began almost instantly, with each side trying to prove their point by the next morning. The clip had reached the timelines of several gossip pages and celebrity news accounts. They reposted it with headlines like, "Matrix star using coupons in LA grocery store, fans shocked," or "Is Keanu Reeves broke? Spotted clipping coupons like the rest of us." The more the story spread, the more exaggerated it became. Some articles even hinted at false rumors about his finances, while others tried to turn it into a quirky personality trait. But the tone in many posts carried a mocking edge, the kind that made viewers smirk instead of smile. The two store employees who had laughed at him also saw the clip, and instead of staying quiet, they made the situation worse. One of them posted on her own social media saying, "Yep, that was me laughing in the background, couldn't believe the man from John Wick was trying to save $3. She tagged the store's official account, thinking it would be a funny inside moment for her followers. The other employee commented under her post, adding, "Maybe next time he'll bring food stamps." Their friends reacted with laughing emojis, but beyond their small circle. Not everyone found it amusing by now. The video had reached major platforms, and celebrities began to notice. A few quietly liked posts defending Keanu, while others openly criticized the mockery. One actor tweeted, "Imagine having a career worth hundreds of millions and still knowing the value of a dollarist." Fans flooded the thread with stories of Keanu's kindness, like how he gave away most of his earnings from the Matrix to the crew, or how he paid for strangers' meals without ever revealing it was him. The image of him standing quietly in line with his coupons was now being compared to stories of his generosity. And people began to see the irony, mocking a man for saving money when he had given away far more than most people earn in a lifetime. Meanwhile, the grocery chain's marketing team saw the video too. And while at first they thought it might be harmless publicity, they quickly realized it wasn't. The mocking tone of their own employees, combined with the viral nature of the post, painted the store in a bad light. Hundreds of comments under the video began targeting the chain itself, accusing them of fostering a culture that looked down on customers who tried to save money. If they laugh at Keanu for using coupons, imagine how they treat poor people, one comment read. And it quickly gained thousands of likes. Keanu himself, as the news spread, didn't respond publicly. He didn't call out the employees, didn't post a statement, and didn't defend himself in interviews. In fact, he avoided public appearances altogether in the days following, letting the storm swirl without his voice in it. But those close to him knew that he had seen the video. And while he wasn't upset about being laughed at personally, something about the way it represented ordinary people bothered him deeply. He knew that millions of families depended on coupons just to make ends meet, and if the world saw using them as shameful, it could stop people from feeling comfortable saving money as the days passed. The mocking clip became one of the most shared videos online, not just in entertainment news, but across platforms that usually didn't talk about celebrities. Financial blogs used it as an example of frugal habits of the rich, while human interest pages framed it as a humility test. But in the middle of all that noise, Keanu quietly made a decision, one that had nothing to do with revenge or clearing his image, and everything to do with sending a quiet, powerful message. the kind of message only someone in his position could deliver. And that decision would change everything for the people who had laughed. Keanu Reeves had never been the kind of man who cared about showing off. From the outside, people saw a Hollywood star with blockbuster films, millions in the bank, and global fame. But those who had met him in person knew he lived differently. He didn't own a giant mansion with gold gates. He didn't wear watches worth more than a car. And he didn't travel with a dozen assistants following him everywhere. Instead, he was the man you might see riding the subway with regular commuters, holding a paperback book in his hands, or standing in line for coffee like everyone else. No special treatment, no celebrity attitude for years. Fans had shared little stories about him, how he would quietly pay for a stranger's meal without saying it was him, or how he would stay behind after filming to talk to the crew, making sure everyone was treated like family. He was known for giving away a large portion of his movie earnings to the stunt teams, makeup artists, and costume designers, because he believed they were the real heroes behind the scenes. These weren't things he announced in interviews. They were the kind of stories that spread because people he had helped couldn't keep quiet. About his kindness, but Keanu's humility wasn't an act. It was rooted in his life. He had grown up without much money, and he had faced heartbreak. After heartbreak, losing close friends, losing the love of his life, and experiencing tragedy that could have made anyone bitter. Instead, it made him softer, more aware of the struggles ordinary people faced every day. To him, using coupons wasn't embarrassing. It was just common sense. It meant valuing every dollar, no matter how many you had. And that mindset stayed with him, even after becoming one of the most famous actors in the world. So when the grocery store video started spreading and people began mocking him, he didn't see it as a personal insult. He saw it as a mirror of how society often looked down on people for trying to save money. He knew that millions of people, single parents, elderly folks on fixed incomes, young workers living paycheck to paycheck, depended on coupons just to keep food on the table. Few store employees could laugh at him, a celebrity, for using them. Then, how would they treat someone who actually needed them? This thought stayed in his mind more than the jokes about him personally. His close friends reached out to check on him. Some offered to defend him publicly. Others suggested he post a statement to set the record straight, but Keanu politely declined. He didn't want to get into an online argument or turn the story into a shouting match. Instead, he chose silence, because he knew that sometimes silence was more powerful than any speech. And while the internet argued over whether he was cheap or humble, he began thinking about something much bigger than a video or a joke. What most people didn't know was that Keanu already had an ongoing connection with the grocery chain in question. Behind the scenes, he had been working with their corporate team on a massive charity partnership. The plan was to launch a campaign that would donate meals to underprivileged families across the country, using his image and influence to promote it. The contract had been discussed for months, and the numbers involved were huge over the next decade. The collaboration was expected to bring in around $38 billion in revenue for the chain. While funding countless food programs for those in need, Keanu had agreed to it because he believed in the mission. He wanted to help people put food on the table without feeling ashamed. But now, watching the video of the store employees laughing at customers for using coupons, the entire thing felt wrong. How could he stand in front of cameras promoting a company that, at the ground level, allowed this kind of behavior? If their own staff didn't respect the dignity of customers, then what would all the charity campaigns mean? The thought kept circling in his mind until it became clear he couldn't stay involved. Not under these circumstances. For Keanu, it wasn't about punishing anyone, it was about principle. And he knew that the quietest decisions often had the loudest consequences. He had no interest in humiliating the employees or making a scene. But he also couldn't pretend the incident hadn't happened. His values wouldn't allow it. And once his mind was made up, there was no changing it. He didn't need to tell the world yet. But the choice had already been made in his heart that evening. Keanu sat in his living room, the soft glow of a lamp casting warm light over a table scattered with books. A cup of tea beside him, a tea's phone resting face down. He didn't check the latest articles or the trending hashtags. He didn't scroll through comments or watch reaction videos. Instead, he quietly wrote a short note to his team, asking them to schedule a call with the grocery chain's top executives. There was no anger in the message, no drama, just a simple statement. I think it's best we withdraw from this partnership. He knew the call would change things. He knew the company would be shocked. And he knew the amount of money involved would make headlines. But that didn't matter. What mattered was staying true to who he was, even if it meant walking away from something massive. In his mind, this wasn't about money yet, was about respect, dignity, and standing up in his own quiet way. For millions of people who couldn't make their voices heard, the call was arranged quickly, faster than most big business discussions. Because when Keanu Reeves asked for a meeting, people made time. On the other side of the line were the top executives of the grocery chain, men and women who had been working for months to finalize the charity partnership with him. They expected this call to be about finalizing the campaign dates, maybe even filming the first promotional material. They had no idea the conversation was about to take a very different turn. Keanu's voice was calm when he spoke. There was no anger, no sharp tone, just the same steady voice that had made directors and co-stars respect him for years. He began by thanking them for the opportunity, saying he truly believed in the original idea helping families who struggled to afford food. He mentioned how important it was to him that people could eat with dignity, without feeling embarrassed for saving money. The executives nodded along on their end, thinking this was just a warm introduction to the call. Then Keanu paused for a moment, the kind of pause that makes people lean in, and he said, "But I don't think I can go through with this partnership." The words landed heavily, surprising everyone on the other side. For a moment there was silence, followed by one of the executives asking, "Can we ask why?" Keanu didn't raise his voice. He simply explained what had happened. He told them about his visit to the store, how two of their employees had mocked him for using coupons, and how the video had spread online. He didn't make it about himself. He made it about the principle if their employees could treat a customer like that, then the culture wasn't right. He explained that the partnership would send the wrong message if the company didn't stand for respect at every level. You can feed people, but if you make them feel small for needing help, you take something away from them, he said softly. The executives listened, shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Some tried to reassure him, saying they would handle the employees, issue apologies, and make public statements. But Keanu's mind was already made up. This wasn't a problem that could be fixed with one apology. It was about trust. And he no longer felt he could attach his name to the brand. What they didn't expect was the weight of what they were losing. This wasn't just a celebrity endorsement. The deal they had worked on was enormous over the next 10 years. It was projected to generate around $38 billion in revenue. Thanks to Keanu's global appeal and the goodwill his name brought, the charity campaign tied to it would have boosted the company's image, increased customer loyalty, and opened doors in international markets. Walking away from Keanu meant losing all of that. And they knew it. One executive tried one last time, saying, "Mr. Reeves, think about the families this partnership could help." But Keanu had already thought about them. In fact, they were the reason he was stepping away. Helping families starts with respect, he said. If the people working in your stores don't believe in that, the campaign means nothing. His tone was gentle, but final. It was clear there would be no negotiation. No second meeting to reconsider. The call ended politely, Keanu thanking them again for the original idea and wishing them success in future projects. But when the line went dead, the executives sat in silence. the reality sinking in. They had just lost one of the most trusted public figures in the world, and with him, they had lost a decade of planned revenue, marketing strategies, and international expansion, all because of a moment in a grocery store that had gone viral. Keanu, on the other hand, didn't think about it in numbers. To him, the loss of money meant nothing compared to the loss of integrity. He knew people would eventually hear about his decision, and when they did, he wanted them to know it wasn't because of ego or because he was angry, but because some things were more valuable than a contract. He had always believed that if you had a platform, you should use it to stand for something. And in this case, standing for respect meant walking away after the call. He put his phone aside and went back to his quiet life. He didn't post about it on social media, didn't leak the story to the press. He simply continued his day making tea, reading, maybe calling a friend. Somewhere inside, he felt a calm satisfaction, not because he had won something, but because he had done what felt right. The rest, he knew, would unfold on its own, and it would, in ways even he couldn't yet imagine. Keanu Reeves had always believed that money was just a tool, something that could help people, but never something that defined a person's worth. Over the years, he had seen too many examples of wealth making people arrogant, careless, or blind to the struggles of others. He had promised himself he would never let fame or fortune make him forget the kind of life he came from. That promise was the real reason he walked away from the $38 billion partnership with the grocery chain. Even if most people wouldn't have had the courage to do the same. When he thought back to that day in the store, it wasn't the laughter of the two employees that stayed with him the most. It was what the laughter represented. He had seen the same look in their eyes before, not toward him, but toward people who came into stores with worn-out clothes, people who counted every cent before paying, people who quietly used coupons because that little bit of saving meant they could afford one more meal that week. It was a look that judged, a look that made someone feel less human, and Keanu couldn't stand by and work with a company that allowed that kind of culture to exist. The charity campaign they had planned together had been ambitious. The idea was to provide millions of meals to families in need, with Keanu as the face of the project. It would have been promoted everywhere, from television commercials to billboards across the country, but to Keanu, that image now felt false. How could the same brand claim to help struggling families, letting their staff mock a man for doing something those same families did every day? It was a contradiction he couldn't ignore. For him, the issue went beyond this one store. It was about the message the company sent from the top down. If respect wasn't part of their core values, then no amount of donations or charity work could fix that. Respect wasn't a campaign, was a habit, a daily choice. And it started with the way you treated the people standing in front of you, whether they were rich, poor, or somewhere in between. Some of his friends had tried to talk him into staying in the deal. They argued that he could use his influence to change the company from the inside, but Keanu knew that real change only came when people were willing to face consequences. If the company lost something massive because of this incident, maybe they would take a deeper look at how they trained their staff. Maybe they would make respect a real part of their culture, not just a slogan on a wall. Walking away wasn't just about him, it was about sending a message that couldn't be ignored. In his mind, he pictured the families who clipped coupons late at night, sitting at their kitchen tables with scissors and store flyers, carefully planning how to stretch a small budget into enough food for the week. He thought about single parents who stood in checkout lines, praying they had calculated everything correctly so they wouldn't have to put something back. These people deserved to feel respected, not pitied, not judged, and certainly not laughed at. And if it took him losing a massive deal to make that point, then so be it. Keanu's own upbringing had shaped this belief. There had been times when his family didn't have much, times when every dollar mattered. He remembered the quiet embarrassment that could come with not having enough. And he remembered how much it meant when someone treated you with kindness anyway. Those memories stayed with him, shaping the way he saw the world, shaping the way he treated people, and shaping the decision he made after the call with the executives. Keanu spoke privately to his team, explaining that this wasn't about bad publicity or hurt feelings. It was about values, he told them. If we work with a company, it has to be one we truly believe in, not just in what they sell, but in how they treat people. His team understood. Even though they knew walking away from the deal meant giving up a massive amount of potential funding for future projects, none of them questioned his choice because they knew it came from a place of integrity. The world didn't know the full story yet. But Keanu didn't care about controlling the narrative. He didn't need to defend himself to strangers on the internet. He knew the truth, and that was enough. He also knew that when the company announced the deal was off, people would start asking questions, and when the real reason eventually came out, it would make more of an impact than any public statement he could have made. Now for Keanu, this decision was a reminder to himself as much as it was a message to others. Fame and money could disappear in a moment, but the way you treated people and the choices you made when no one was watching, those were the things that lasted. Those were the things that defined who you really were. And in that quiet truth, he found peace, even as the rest of the world was about to erupt with speculation. The news broke quietly at first, just a small update in a business newsletter that most people would have ignored. It simply said that Keanu Reeves had withdrawn from a major charity partnership with a national grocery chain. No reason was given, no big announcement. It's just a short sentence tucked between other headlines, but it didn't stay small for long. Within hours, bigger outlets started to notice, and soon the story began spreading across social media. At first, people were confused. Why would Keanu walk away from a project that was meant to feed millions of families? Some thought maybe it was a scheduling problem. Others guessed it was just a business disagreement, but then whispers began to circulate online. People who claimed to work inside the company started leaving comments under news posts, hinting that it had something to do with that coupon video that had gone viral the week before. The connection was too tempting for the internet to ignore. A popular entertainment blogger picked up the thread and posted a detailed story linking the two events. They wrote that Keanu had been mocked by store employees while using coupons and that the grocery chain had done little to address it. The blog post exploded in popularity, and soon everyone was talking about how the video might have cost the company their $38 billion partnership. Once that number appeared in headlines, the story became unstoppable. Every major news channel wanted to cover it. A grocery chain's PR team scrambled to respond. They released a statement saying they were deeply sorry for the incident and that the employees involved had been suspended. They claimed it didn't reflect their values and promised to do better, but the damage was already done. For most people reading the news, the apology felt too late and too forced. The video of the employees laughing was still fresh in everyone's minds. And now it was tied to the loss of billions of dollars. Public opinion shifted quickly. People began calling for boycotts of the grocery chain, not just because of what happened to Keanu, but because the incident reminded them of times they had been treated poorly in stores. Social media was flooded with stories from customers who had been judged for using coupons for paying in coins or for buying the cheapest items. The hashtag #RespectEveryCustomer began trending, with Keanu's name attached to it in thousands of posts. Meanwhile, Keanu stayed silent. He didn't confirm or deny the reason for leaving the deal, and that only made people admire him more. Fans saw his silence as proof that he hadn't done this for attention or publicity. He had made his decision quietly, without dragging anyone through the mud. And yet his choice had sparked a nationwide conversation about dignity and respect for customers. Celebrities began weighing in. Some shared their own experiences of being frugal despite being wealthy. Others praised Keanu for standing by his principles. One well-known actor tweeted, This is why Keanu is loved by everyone. He doesn't just talk about kindness. He lives it. The post went viral, adding even more fuel to the story. Late-night talk show hosts made jokes about how the grocery chain had laughed themselves out of $38 billion, but the jokes carried an edge, because everyone knew the company's reputation had taken a serious hit inside the grocery chain's corporate offices. Panic was growing. Investors were calling for emergency meetings. The company's stock price began to drop, and news analysts were openly debating whether they would recover from this loss. $38 billion wasn't just a number, it represented planned store expansions, new product lines, and a massive marketing campaign that would no longer happen. All because of one decision made in a quiet living room by a man who refused to compromise his values for ordinary people watching the story unfold. It felt like justice. Too often, big companies seemed untouchable. But here was proof that even the biggest brands could face consequences when they disrespected their customers. It didn't matter that Keanu was a celebrity. What mattered was that he had stood up for something that affected millions of everyday people. And he had done it without making himself the hero of the story as the backlash continued. The grocery chain tried to repair its image, offering discounts, launching new kindness initiatives, and publicly donating to food banks. But every post they made was met with comments reminding them of what they had lost. "Should have respected him when you had the chance" became a common reply under their social media updates. The shadow of the coupon incident hung over every move they made. Keanu, on the other hand, carried on with his life as if nothing had changed. Friends spotted him at small cafes, signing autographs for fans in the street, and even taking the subway again when asked about the story by a paparazzi photographer. He simply smiled and said, "Everyone deserves respect," before walking away. It was the only public comment he ever made on the matter, and somehow, that made it even more powerful by the end of the week. It was clear the story wasn't going to fade anytime soon. The video, the lost deal, and the quiet dignity of Keanu's response had all combined into something bigger than a celebrity headline. It had become a lesson, one that millions of people were now sharing. And the grocery chain, no matter what it did next, would always be remembered as the company that laughed at the wrong man and paid the highest price for it. The fallout from Keanu Reeves' decision didn't stop after the first wave of news. In fact, in the days and weeks that followed, the damage to the grocery chain became even more visible. Their stock continued to fall, wiping out billions in market value. Investors were furious, demanding explanations from the board of directors, some even threatening lawsuits for negligence. What had once been a steady, respected company was now seen as careless, insensitive, and out of touch with the people it served. Other companies were quick to notice the gap that Keanu's departure had left. Rival grocery brands saw an opportunity and moved fast. One major competitor publicly invited Keanu to join a similar charity campaign, promising that their stores treated every customer with dignity, even releasing a statement saying, "In our stores, saving money is something we respect." The public loved it, and the competitor's sales began to rise while the original chain's numbers kept dropping. Social media users kept the story alive. Every time the grocery chain posted something, people flooded the comments with reminders of the coupon incident. Videos of employees mocking customers began surfacing from other branches too, proving that the issue wasn't just one store, but a deeper problem within the company culture. It became impossible for the chain to escape the shadow of what had happened with Keanu. In the middle of all this, Keanu stayed completely out of the drama. He didn't accept offers from rival chains. He didn't make new deals. Instead, he focused on projects he believed in, both in film and charity, without attaching himself to a company's name. He quietly donated to food banks and meal programs, making sure the families who needed help still got it. Only this time, he did it without corporate logos, cameras, or press releases for him. It was never about the publicity, was always about the people. Keanu's decision began inspiring others too. Smaller business owners started sharing how they had changed their own store policies to make sure customers felt respected. One bakery owner wrote online, "If Keanu Reeves can use coupons without shame, so can anyone in my shop," and offered a special discount for senior citizens and low-income families. The post went viral, and soon other businesses joined in, creating a ripple effect of kindness across different communities. Even celebrities began speaking up about the importance of humility. Sharing their own frugal habits, some admitted they shopped in discount stores, used coupons, or waited for sales. The conversation shifted from mocking frugality to celebrating it. And people realized that saving money wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign of being smart and grounded. Keanu had unknowingly sparked a cultural shift, one that encouraged people to be proud of living within their means. Sighed the grocery chain. The leadership was in chaos. Several executives resigned under pressure, and the CEO faced public criticism for how poorly the incident had been handled. Internal emails leaked, showing that they had initially hoped the video would blow over, which only made the backlash worse. It confirmed what people already suspected, that the company didn't take respect seriously until it started costing them money. By then, it was far too late to fix their image. In the following months, their financial reports showed huge losses. Store closures were announced, and thousands of employees were laid off, while many of those employees had nothing to do with the coupon incident. The chain's reputation had been so badly damaged that even loyal customers were leaving. It became a lesson in how quickly public trust could vanish. When respect was missing from a company's values, Keanu never commented on the chain's downfall. He didn't celebrate it, and he didn't speak badly about them. When asked in a rare interview if he felt sorry for the company, he simply said, "I hope they learn from it." His calm, almost gentle response stood in sharp contrast to the anger and chaos that still surrounded the story. It reminded people why they respected him so much. He wasn't interested in revenge. He was interested in change. The truth was, Keanu's silence spoke louder than any speech could have. By refusing to stay in a deal that went against his principles, he had proven that integrity was worth more than money. His example showed the world that sometimes walking away from the wrong thing was just as powerful as saying yes to the right thing. And the impact of that choice continued to grow long after the headlines faded. In the end, what began as a small moment in a grocery store, a man using coupons, a couple of employees laughing, had turned into a story that shook a billion-dollar company, inspired businesses and individuals to treat people with more kindness, and reminded the world that true respect doesn't depend on a person's bank account. It depends on how you choose to see them. Keanu Reeves had shown that one quiet decision, made for the right reasons, could change more than anyone expected. Months had passed since the day Keanu Reeves walked away from the $38 billion deal. But the story refused to disappear. It had taken on a life of its own, living in conversations, news articles, and online posts long after most celebrity headlines faded. People kept bringing it up whenever the topic of respect, humility, or corporate greed came into play, and Keanu's quiet decision had become a reference point, a real-life example of standing by your principles. The grocery chain, once a leader in its market, was still struggling to recover. Their new advertising campaigns tried to focus on kindness and customer appreciation, but the public wasn't ready to forgive so easily every time they posted something positive. Online, people replied with reminders of the coupon incident. Memes and jokes still floated around. Mixed in with the humor was a deeper truth: people now saw the company differently. And trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. Meanwhile, Keanu's life remained unchanged on the surface. He still walked the streets without bodyguards, still used public transport, and still greeted strangers with the same quiet smile. To him, The decision to leave the deal wasn't a grand act of rebellion. It was simply doing what felt right. He didn't want credit, but people gave it to him anyway. Not because he wanted fame for it, but because it reminded them that doing the right thing often comes at a cost, and that cost is worth paying. Parents began telling their children the story, not as a piece of celebrity gossip, but as a lesson. They explained how someone with all the money in the world still chose to use coupons, how he wasn't embarrassed, and how he refused to work with a company that mocked people for saving money. In schools, teachers used it as an example of integrity, showing students that real success isn't just about wealth. It's about character, and how you treat others. The ripple effect reached even further. Small stores across the country quietly reviewed their training programs, making sure their staff understood the importance of treating every customer equally. Some businesses even started putting up signs that said, "Coupons, welcome, every penny counts." A few of them mentioned Keanu by name in their marketing, not to profit from his image, but to show they stood for the same values he did. Keanu himself kept giving to charities, especially those that focused on hunger and poverty. But he did it in his usual way, silently, without press releases or public events. Food banks began noticing anonymous donations coming in that matched the amounts Keanu had given in the past. Some suspected it was him, but no one could prove it, and he never confirmed it. It didn't matter to him if people knew. What mattered was that the work continued, that families were fed, and that dignity was preserved. When asked in a later interview if he regretted walking away from the deal, Keanu paused for a moment, then simply said, "No amount of money is worth compromising what you believe in." It was a short answer, but it resonated with millions. It wasn't just about the grocery chain anymore. It was about every decision people make in their own lives. Choosing to do the right thing, even when it costs something, choosing to value respect over convenience, and choosing to walk away from what doesn't feel right. Years later, people still remembered the story. It was no longer just that time Keanu used coupons. It had become the time Keanu stood up for respect. It was told in podcasts, in articles about ethical leadership, and even in business seminars where CEOs were reminded that culture mattered as much as profit. Some of those same executives admitted that the incident had changed the way they viewed their own companies, realizing that one careless moment could undo years of building a brand. For Keanu, life simply went on. He continued making films, meeting fans, and living in a way that kept him grounded. But every so often, someone would stop him on the street, not to ask about his movies, but to thank him for what he did that day. Some said it gave them courage to stand up for themselves at work. Others said it made them proud of their frugal habits, and a few told him they had changed the way they treated people in their own businesses because of him. The truth was, he hadn't set out to teach anyone a lesson. He hadn't planned for this to become a worldwide story. All he had done was listen to his own conscience and act accordingly. But that was exactly why it had such an impact, because it was real. It wasn't scripted, and it wasn't for show. It was a reminder that sometimes the quietest actions echoed the loudest. In the end, the legacy of that moment wasn't about a grocery store, or a viral video, or even the billions of dollars lost. It was about the simple idea that respect should never be conditional, that no one is too rich to save money, and no one is too poor to deserve kindness. Keanu Reeves had walked out of a store with his groceries and his dignity intact, and in doing so, he left the world with a story that would be told for many years to come. Story not about fame or fortune, but about the unshakable value of doing the right thing, even when no one expects you to.